What would you recommend to an agent to make the biggest impact in their agency going forward? And it could be like maybe a new agent coming into the industry or a seasoned agent that's really has that fire and they're ready to take their agency to the next level.
Figure out your ideal situation of what you're looking for and work backwards to get there.
Insurance dudes are on a mission to escape being handcuffed by our agencies.
How? By uncovering the secrets to creating a predictable, consistent, and profitable agency sales machine.
I am Craig Pretzinger.
I am Jason Feldman.
We are agents.
We are insurance dudes.
Right now, while it's fresh in your mind, check out live.teledudes.com.
We took our notes from over 100 interviews with top agents from around the country and made it into a live webcast.
Using these strategies led Craig and I to selling more than $10 million in premium in the last 2 years.
On this call, you'll receive the exact blueprint to get the same results.
Just go to live.teledudes.com to register for this upcoming Tuesday's live call with us.
If you jump on this call with us, we're certain 2022 will be an absolutely fantastic year for you.
See you there.
I love how this is just becoming this mindset episode, but mindset is so important because if you believe you can't, you won't. If you believe you can, you will. And there's no better support system or what I don't know what the opposite of support system would be, but detractor system than those people you're around. So if you're around the peers who are all complacent and or growing at 5%, you're likely going to do the same. If you're around the people that are growing at 30%, you're going to figure out how to grow at 30% because you don't want to be the one that's at the back of the herd. And I mean, that's also part of the reason we built everything was, hey, I want other people around that want to grow because they're going to push us, right? And in the same way that we push the producers, right, by telling them these things and making them uncomfortable, we need to do the same thing. And that's why it's so important to take responsibility because guess what? That puts the onus on us. No matter what, it's our fault, right? Yeah. Like even if the internet went down, it's our fault because we don't have two kinds of internet. Right? Like
because we're in Tucson.
Or you're in Tucson, which is my fault because I met my wife and stayed here. I could have, I'm not going to go down that road. Just kidding. But really, like as we assume that responsibility, the fire is always under our feet. We're going to take action so that we can get results.
Yeah. I also think I agree. And I would tie it back into another answer to the question that Jason asked of, hey, what's something that's really benefited your agency? When you're around all the people that are growing at 5 or 10%, they're telling you of all the reasons why that's the absolute maximum growth that they can achieve. Right. But one way that I've tried to really pivot within the last few months, and again, I don't know if I read this somewhere or picked it up from somebody else. I'm generally doing a lot of that stuff, so it's hard to remember the sources for all of it, but I'm more focused on application. But one of the things that I've been really focusing on is don't ask, can it be done? Ask, how do I do this? Right. So one of the big things is like, how do we tweak this process to fit? Or how do we break even on this portion of the process? Or, how do we pay staff $100,000 and pay marketing cost? How do we do that? And instead of saying it can't be done, when you say, how can it be done? You have a few sleepless nights for about a week, but you'll figure it out.
Yep. It's incredible what our brains come up with, even when we're sleeping. If we're on a problem and we've decided that we're going to take ownership of this problem, like how can we solve it? Then you usually can come up with a pretty unique way. Somebody said that something about like the difference between the way like millionaires and normal people think, normal people is the difference is they think like I can't do something where the millionaire thinks, how do I make this happen? Yeah. So it's the exact same thing. There's
a million reasons why electric
focusing on the problem versus focusing on the solution. Sorry, cut you off.
I was just saying there's a million reasons why electric cars don't work until Elon has a car that works. Then all of a sudden Ford and GM are, oh crap, we can figure this out too. Give us a few years to catch up, right? Private space flight doesn't work. Internet that comes through the satellites, that's never viable. Well, here it is, right? So
yeah.
And you can't sail around the world, it's flat.
Yeah. That's what they taught when Craig was young.
Yeah.
Um,
I remember when they switched over to the round world model. Crazy.
One of the things that you said was, the group that you talked to. And I thought a lot about this actually yesterday, and I made a post for it. I just couldn't figure out how to post it, but that's neither here nor there. But
You're getting old too then.
But what I was thinking about was we all have problems. And I know that I posted it in, usually in those Facebook groups, I'm usually the one that's like, oh, find the solution, blah, blah, blah. And then one agent hit me up and said, dude, agents need to vent about some of this stuff. And I thought about it. And I said, yeah, I mean, I understand that. I understand that because we have to vent. And then on the other hand, we have to find solutions. There's no reason to dwell on the problem. So, but I understand, I empathize with the fact that you got to vent. So I thought about it, and I thought about all these groups, and these groups, it's almost like the venting becomes the primary thing, and that's what everybody's focused on. And then I started thinking about it. Well, where does the high performer need to vent? You need to be very cautious of who you're venting to, right? Like if you talk about a problem with another high performing agent, you're probably going to come out with a lot of insights, solution based outcomes to that conversation. Where if you vent to somebody who's a low performer that thinks everything sucks, you're going to get the worst advice ever. So it's like being very discerning on who you vent to. It's kind of like they always say you're a culmination of the 5 people that you hang out with. That's how you're going to act, or that's what's going to influence you the most. And I think it's the same thing with business owners. Like the 5 business owners that you talk to and get the advice from, your business is probably going to look a lot like theirs. So if you're venting, which we all have to do at times, right? If you're venting to the wrong people, they're going to infect you with the wrong information and the kind of stuff that's going to hold you down. So it is very important. That peer group is very important, who you choose. That was very long. Sorry about that.
Totally. Well, somewhere out there's a quote from somebody that says, great minds talk about ideas and mediocre minds talk about problems and weak minds talk about people, right? Or something like that. I forget the one in the middle, but anyway, that's what it's basically saying. And I think it goes along with manage processes, lead people, right? I think that those two quotes go hand in hand with each other. It's like, I don't know how
manage
to
processes.
on that.
I love that because leading people, and I think I did a podcast recently of that, is and it really just dawned on me, was the whole processes are data based, right? There's no feelings involved. There shouldn't be. The mechanics of the business is just numbers based. It needs to be feelingless. But the leading part is very feeling based. And that's the part. You need to make your environment feel like operating at a high level, and then following the processes, the numbers, and that's it. And usually we flip that to where we're leading processes with emotion, and we're leading with numbers. So leading with hey, Sally, I told you to do this. It was supposed to be 20. You only did 15. And it's dude, that's never, they're not going to feel like producing those numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's it's crazy to me.
Right. Then Sally dreads coming into work, which affects everybody else. And then now you're pissed. So now it just is a downward spiral.
And then you lead the processes like your sales team with your feeling, instead of holding everybody accountable to the numbers, you're feeling oh, sales suck. And you go in there and you make a scene, and it's oh, dude, you're not following your process. Just follow the numbers. Get the team to do the numbers. If they do the numbers, the outcome is going to be there. So take the feeling out of that part, add the feeling to the leading part, and then you're okay.
Seagull management. That's seagull management. Have you heard of that?
No.
Where you fly in, you crap all everybody, and then you fly out.
Oh, that's
the official
good.
term. I think it comes from the Harvard Business School.
Yeah, no, I hope Envy
from their
takes
MBA program.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I was recently interviewing a candidate that we were talking, and I was sharing with the training and how we do 2-a-days and our 1-to-1 meetings once a week. And he said, well, how do you feel about, and I won't mention him, such and such bigwig trainer. And he's like, I'm getting ready to sign on for this mentorship class and he's going to train me. I said, well, I can tell you that we're very unique here. I don't have you go out and do the prospecting. You're doing the selling. We separate those things in our office. Your job is to sell, thus 4 hours of talk time, not 700 outbound dials. But what I ended up telling him when he pushed me a little further is that, look, if you follow my processes and you don't get results, It's my fault. If you follow somebody else's processes and you don't get results, that's on you. So if you want to come work here, you can follow whichever process you want. But if we don't do it the way that's working for everybody else, you can't come back and say that something's broke here at the agency.
Yep.
It's
What'd they
working for
say?
everybody else. They haven't called me back, so I guess they want to follow whoever. But
That's good.
I'm not looking for people that can't be personally accountable to their actions, right?
100%.
They want to listen to somebody else who isn't even in the insurance space. They're in the real estate space, right? So they want to listen to a real estate trainer and coach tell them how to sell insurance. And then if I say it's on you if it doesn't work out, they want to be able to blame me that their real estate coach didn't teach them how to sell insurance, right? It's the leads or, it's not the case.
So crazy.
It's not the case. We know it's not the case because everybody else is performing 4 weeks in, almost $20,000 in written premium in the first 4 weeks in the office.
Right.
So, it's it's not the process if it doesn't work.
Right. So what are you doing process wise for your marketing and everything for sales?
Yeah. So for our marketing, we're gathering leads through the internet. So like SEO, Facebook, different random websites. So we're getting people that are interested in a quote in some fashion or form. And then we're dialing on those leads with telemarketers. And then the telemarketers are transferring those leads to our agents. And then our agents are closing those leads.
Super cool. So what is the percentage that you're doing of Facebook marketing and like all the other avenues? And as a captive, we can't really do that stuff because, we can't do that stuff, but it's super cool because you can promote your brand. So I'm just curious on what you're doing, those leads versus like bot internet leads.
Well, we're working on ramping those up right now. I would say, I don't know, it was a little embarrassing. I should know those numbers. I always am looking at the numbers. I would say maybe 20% come from self-generated leads.
Cool. So and that's 20, a brand.
20%
that's kind of
closed policies come from self-generated leads.
Okay. I mean, that play is kind of a branding play too. So you're getting kind of a 2-in-1 in that by doing that, right? Is that kind of how you're?
Yeah, that's the hope.
Cool.
Branding plus kind of the community knowing that we're here and because we don't have a nationally trademarked and recognized logo that we're behind with ads and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of got to do that on our own. Some of our carrier partners help us with that. So if you're in Michigan and you go to Progressive's website and say find an agent, we've even got some referrals from Progressive that are on the other side of the state. So,
that's super cool
because of how much business we write with Progressive. So, all that stuff kind of helps.
Craig gets a ton of leads from his carrier for free.
Oh yeah, that's stuff.
Super cool.
Yeah. So some of that stuff, and then obviously those leads are a little bit bigger closers because they're looking specifically for us, but definitely building us up as a local community, co-hosting events with real estate agents and mortgage bankers and that type of stuff, just visibility, getting our name out there. Then of course, asking for referrals. I mean, we close it seems like anyways, we close a good number of leads on referrals too, but our typical process is someone has to make the dials. 5% of people pick up the telephone. About 20% of the 5% that answer is willing to talk to somebody. And like 25 to 35% of the people that get a quote are going to close. So it's just not possible, right? It's just not possible for a producer to make 5,000 dials in a week so that they can get 50 quotes so that they can sell 5. Remember, our agency goal is 7, right? 7 sold policies. So if they close, 1 in 4, the numbers just get crazy.
Yeah.
They need to do 28 quotes in a week, and then you have to multiply that by only 20% of the people will allow you to quote them. And I think, it works out to be something like they have to make 15,000 phone calls over the period of a week in order to close 7 policies. And it's just not possible because then you also have to talk to the leads on the telephone and explain the coverages to them and provide them the service that they deserve.
And follow up on quoted.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember that was the missing piece, was understanding like the math is right? The math works. There's no disputing whether or not simple arithmetic actually works if you start calculating things. And we know that there's percentages for each stage. And I'd always calculate backwards and then get to, okay, if I want to write 200,000 in premium, that's going to by the time you get to dials, you're in the hundreds of thousands of dials. And I'd be like, well, that's impossible, right? Instead of, wait, so how could I get 100,000 dials if I needed to? If I had to get 100,000 dials, and that's when it changed, right? When we said, wait, how about we actually look at that number and we tack that number? And then when we plugged in 110,000 dials, oh, it worked, right? So that's it's actually understanding the math, trusting the math, and then applying the math. Mm-hmm. And solving it, because it's like, okay, you don't want to make $110,000. That's not going to happen. Then just look at some other way to do it. But the dials are going to be needed, right?
And if there's areas that you were wrong or made mistakes along the way, who cares? Tweak it as you go, right? If you have the mindset of how do we do this, you figure it out. If you don't, you never figure it out. And you complain with the other agents that grow at 5% every year on why that's the cap. And the agents that are growing quicker than that must be cheaters and liars.
Right.
So
I love that too. I remember for so long, I kept looking for the what, like, what do I need to do? The what was always in front of me. It was the how do I do that, right? That had to be solved. And then that changed it.
So how do you solve the retention problem in the agency? So we're bringing them in. You got a rock solid way to bring them in.
Yep.
What are you doing to retain?
For retention, if someone calls and says they want to leave, we say, why? Where are you going? That doesn't make any sense. Why don't you send us the quote that they sent you and we'll shop you out with the other carriers, and then we just resell them. The best way to retain somebody is to sell them more stuff, right? So we'll quote $250,000 limit. They'll come back with a quote for $100,000. I'll uncover why the $250,000 limit wasn't even enough. Really, they needed an umbrella on top of it. And now, as far as they're concerned, that agent, I use this analogy all the time, especially because we really try to put other people first, is that a lot of agents out there, they're coming in here, they're selling you a price, but the client thinks that they're buying coverage, right? Oh, it's the same coverage you have right now, we're just cheaper, right? So they think they're buying coverage, the agency thinks they're selling price, and in between here is this big gap. I call that gap lawsuit. but in between here is that big gap, right? And so that's not good. And I very clearly explain that to client and explain that to current staff and say, we have to come in here. We have to explain to them their coverage that they think that they're buying, and don't be afraid to point out the areas where they're being sold a price. And then at the end of the day, if that's what they want, or they don't really care about those coverage items, remind them it's customizable and we can pull those coverage items off. But yeah, on the retention side, I guess we're just digging in our heels and we're saying, what protection do you really want for your family? Because the carrier sets the price. It's not us. The carrier sets the price. Right. So what coverage do you really want for your family? Let's have a conversation about what this other guy quoted. And we're also meticulous about notes in our system. So when they call back to cancel, we're like, hey, did that guy talk to you about how the liability is going to respond for your CPL? Did the new agent talk to you about how the liability responds for the pit bull? Did he ask you questions so he knows that there's a trampoline in the backyard? Does his policy form exclude injuries from trampoline? Oh, you don't know. He didn't talk to you about any of this stuff. Okay, well, just remember on our policy, we gave you special personal property and this and that. And that's how we solve the retention. It's not all independent tricks of just reshopping, right? I think a lot of times people think it's like, oh, well, they're an independent, so they just retain everybody.
Right.
Certainly we have customers that get upset. It's how you handle those phone calls. And basically you go into a resale process and lean back on the rapport that you built with them when you first wrote them. Same thing when we quote somebody Monday, we call them Tuesday, we call them Wednesday, we call them Thursday, and we start the phone call with what are their recreation, what are their hobbies and interests, what are their dreams. Hey, Steve, how you doing? You been doing any kayaking lately? Oh, man, I know it's getting cold. You better get out there before the season gets over. I know you and Betty are dreaming someday of going down to Florida and doing that. Do you think this spring break is going to be the time? Now you talk to them about the coverage.
It's so funny.
How do you know so much about me, Joel?
Yeah, because you told me.
We've asked so many people that question about retention, and that is my favorite answer because it's so true. And we see this all the time in our agency, but it goes to show the power of your sales process. And your sales process, they're asking those questions, right? They're setting that policy up. Everybody says retention sucks with internet leads, right? It's the process. That part of the process, sells twice as many policies, just that recreation, that work, family, fun stuff. And then it also helps retain. It lasts for years with that client. You build up more ammo throughout that process, but it all starts at the sales, and the sales is really the retention.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, selling more policies. I mean, sales is the retention.
Well, and I truly believe insurance is a byproduct. It's people working with people and helping people. And so really what we're doing is we're getting to know them. We're customizing a policy that fits their needs. We're educating them on why that policy fits their needs. And ultimately, we're providing them with the feeling and the sense of security, right? I know this guy, this policy fits my needs. I feel secure and comfortable in the sense that I can call this number and someone will help me night, day, rain, shine, snowstorm, doesn't matter. Jason's like, what's a snowstorm from California, right? But it doesn't matter, right? You call that number, somebody will be there and answer.
Yeah.
And that's what we're providing. And so I tell our agents this all the time on the back end is that if we're going to close and someone's not closing, right, they're balking, we need to overcome at least 3 objections to get them to tell us the truth of why they're not moving forward. And once they tell us the truth, then we find that something happened in the delivery process or in the customizing coverages where either they didn't understand the way that we explained the coverage to them, so they're not empowered, right, feeling. They're not empowered to move forward, or they're not comfortable with where one of those coverages are. And we missed their tonal cues that's how they felt. And so I think it's the exact same thing when someone's getting ready to leave. Something has happened, whether it's a rate increase or whether they felt like after 3 renewals, you should have called them, or something happened in their life that we didn't know about, but they think that we knew about, right? So now they feel as though that trust and relationship is broken. And sure, there's 5% of people that are price shoppers that are price shoppers that are price shoppers, doesn't matter. But the other 95% of the population, it's trust, it's getting to know them, it's them feeling like we're putting as much stake in the game as they are. We're meeting them where they're at and truly trying to help them. And I fully believe that. And so I think it's when somebody calls to cancel, same thing. Somewhere, somehow there was a breach in the trust. So overcome 3 objections before just canceling their policy, figure out what it is, ask for their deck pages, talk to them about their recreation and their dreams. We use Ford here, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Overcome 3 objections before you cancel the policy, get the deck pages or understanding of the current quote, walk through the Ford, rebuild that relationship and retain the client because it's a people game. And, you know, I wouldn't say I'm an overly emotional person, but feelings do matter.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, Dale Carnegie said that people don't remember what you said. They remember how you feel or how you made them feel, right? I mean, that's it. They don't remember the words, all the blah, blah, blah that came out. They're just like, do I feel good about that? I mean, somebody listening to this right now is going, wow, this is so incredible. I'm getting so much great information. They're excited, right? They're pumped. They're getting enthusiastic. I mean, if this is serving them, right, then they feel that. They're not going to remember all of the golden nuggets along the way, but they're going to remember, wow, I got some good stuff from that. It made me feel smarter or more capable or whatever. And then that's what creates the value in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like my kids, right? They always
loud. It's loud. It screams a lot.
It's loud. It's loud. But they never like they're so bad at like remembering it. Like I'll tell them to go upstairs and do these 3 things, right? They're never going to remember it all, but they will remember whether or not like I yelled or anything like, oh, that made me feel bad. Like that's all they know is like, or they ask me, how did you feel? You were mad. Like it's all the feeling based stuff. The remembering of the details, almost never.
Yeah.
The feeling stuff, always.
Well, so speaking of feeling, how do you keep yourself motivated? I know that likely it's this podcast, but if it wasn't this podcast, then what would you do to keep yourself motivated?
In part, it's podcasts. You know, I'm a listener of this podcast, and also I have a leadership podcast that I listen to, a marketing podcast that I listen to. So I kind of have one a day that sort of cycles through. And then also being in a group of people that are like-minded like me, you know, that want to grow, that are problem solvers, not problem finders, right?
Yeah.
Is one of the things I do to keep myself motivated. But also it just comes from within, you know, like certainly I have days that are bad, but for the most part, you know, my motivation comes from within. I've got a little taste of that seeing other people succeed mindset, whether it's customers have claims that are covered because we went the extra mile, or sales agents, you know, be able to make money that they haven't been able to make before. And so the little taste of that just drives me mad to, okay, let's do that times 10.
Super cool.
Not an easy answer, but I think at some point, happiness, motivation, a lot of those things have to come from within.
Love it. As we're wrapping this up, what do you think one of the biggest changes that will be happening the next few years that'll be affecting our agencies?
That's a stumper. I don't know.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
You got another wrap-up question?
Yeah. No, I got another one to that.
Because that one is a, you know, I think for a long time people have said tech's coming and they're going to ruin you guys. And I don't think that's true. I think the only buyers that are switching over and buying online are the buyers who only worked with an agent that wouldn't give them any fuss and would give them their quote and leave them alone and never call them. Those are the buyers that are buying online.
Yeah.
I'm not upset by losing those customers.
If anything, that'll make the leads better.
Correct.
Yep.
Kind of interesting.
Then what would you recommend to an agent to make the biggest impact in their agency going forward? And it could be like maybe a new agent coming into the industry or a seasoned agent that's really has that fire and they're ready to take their agency to the next level.
Figure out your ideal situation of what you're looking for and work backwards to get there. Work backwards to get there, only asking yourself questions like, how do we do this? Not can we. Build your ideal situation, ask, how do I do this? And while you're working on the process, take individual and personal responsibility for everything that goes great and for everything that goes bad. And don't be afraid to change your vision as that tweaks and builds.
That just made me think of something. I think it was, what was the movie in space that it might have been Apollo 13? Is that with Tom Hanks? Or is
Yes.
So, okay.
Do you think I'm going to make this can?
Yeah. So think about that, right? Like here we are, we create some process. You got to do this, this, and this. And then we say, oh gosh, how I can't do that. They were in space in a tiny little freaking can, and they had to fix the filter or they're going to die. Right. And remotely, the engineers in Houston said, okay, let's try. They didn't say, well, we're screwed. Right. Like they figured it out. Like if you can figure out how to build something without the right tools and without the right anything in space remotely, then we probably could figure out how to get this right.
Yeah, and you have to free your mind from the handcuffs. Like I think in today's society, everything's so siloed, right?
Yeah.
So sales is a silo, insurance is a silo, mortgage is a silo, financial advising is a silo. Free your mind from only the solutions in your silo, because you're only going to get the same results. So go talk to the mortgage guys, go talk to the bankers, go talk to, the dentist. Good grief, I hate the dentist. How do they market and get clients? Because if it works for them, it's got to work for me.
Yeah.
I just think it's all, Craig kind of said, turning into a mindset podcast. I don't know what it was supposed to be, so I'm sorry if I hijacked the show.
No.
It's awesome. It sometimes leans in a direction, and this is the direction it took on this one. And I think it's a message that we all need to hear more often, because again, if you feel like being a good leader, then you will. And if you feel like, you know what I mean? Like it all comes down to the way you feel. And I mean,
you define who you want to be, and then you'll get the results that you want to have.
Yeah. Define who you want to be and ask, how do you do it? Not, is it possible? Ask, how do you do it? And I can say I've gotten to a point in my life of doing that enough that it's really starting to snowball, quite frankly. I mean, I'm 32. I own an independent insurance agency outright with no debt. We have 15 different carriers that we write with. We have a growing staff. Stop limiting yourself. I mean, if anybody's listening to this podcast, you can do it too, man. I mean, seriously, just put the hard work in, believe in yourself, tackle the little obstacles, and get started today. You can do it.
You got like so much time at that age. That's half of Craig right there.
Yeah. Hey, you guys might be older than me, but I'm more bald than both of you. I guarantee it.
Well, I'm also more gray than both of you.
Yeah.
And Craig's just actually older than us.
Yeah.
163.
He dated himself with Apollo 13.
Yeah.
He listened to Apollo 13.
I was on it.
Yeah.
Was listening to the radio show.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Craig, do you want to wrap it or am I wrapping it?
You want me to do some rap?
Well, I will do it. Joel, I want to thank you for the type of leader that you are. What an awesome insurance dude you are. I think insurance agents don't get enough kudos for what they do, because hearing a lot of problems, we're almost a shrink at times, right? Between the agency and then the clients and stuff. So I just want to acknowledge you for, really trying to push the gas on it and really push yourself. And so, thank you for being such an awesome insurance dude.
Cool.
You are an awesome insurance dude, Joel. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's awesome to have you on here. Are you going to listen to yourself on the podcast?
What I'm going to do, so short answer, yes. And I've already figured out what I'm going to do is I've noticed that you strip the podcast clips out and throw them on YouTube in mini segments.
Yeah.
So one of the things
you're going to do your own editing.
No, I'm not going to do my own editing. But what I am creating is a series of text messages. Hey, thanks for applying to our position. Can't wait to see you on the video. Can't wait to help you escape from your current situation. I'm going to start adding videos of those texts. So as you guys
Yeah.
release the mini snippets from the YouTube, I was going to say, as seen on, so I'll have one with the podcast, and then I'll have a video of me that's already created of me walking through the agency, and like, this could be your desk, and we have an exciting growing team. And then I'll throw one that's like, here's 3 tips to your success, whether you want to join our team or not, and throw a link to the YouTube short that you guys create from here. So,
Great idea.
This is like an encore knowledge nugget.
yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that. Sometimes I think I just repeat everything everybody else says. So
that's what everything is. Everything.
So this is beneficial and helpful to somebody else, then great.
Yeah.
I think I think it goes back to, and I know we're just keep rambling, but like, you can be your own media company, right? Like having like if you have a new team member and you show, hey, check out our YouTube channel, there's a few things to watch on there. What a huge value add. And it shows that you're almost like more famous than the agency that doesn't have that, right? It almost gives your agency more legitimacy, kind of like as if you were on, MTV or something back in the day.
Come check out my crib.
Yeah. I love that though. It's such good. I mean, anybody can do that, right? Anybody can start the YouTube channel, make some videos up there for their team. It doesn't have to be for, just clients or whatever, and huge value add, I think.
Yeah. Yep. And for $5, you can get someone from Fiverr to edit it.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah. 100%.
So
tip of the day.
Well,
just don't forget, Joel, as you send those shorts out from our channel, that you ask that they subscribe.
You got it. Well, they'll be clicking on the hyperlink to your channel, so make sure that's in the description.
Right. There you go, Craig.
Yeah.
That's an envy job.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. We went this is like
much.
the ultra distance. This is almost like a Rogan episode.
Yeah.
We're coming after you, Joe.
He's not listening.
Oh,
He's not.
You don't think Joe's listening to this? What?
No, and maybe there's probably less people listening than they were at the beginning of this, just because now we're starting to ramble.
Okay. Yeah, and if anybody wants to make fun of either Jason or my wife, that's okay too, because they won't listen. I just went out on a limb.
Jason or my wife.
Jason's wife or Jason. You can make fun of Jason too. All right, let's wrap it on that wonderful note.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Thank you, Joel.
See ya.
Thank you.
Hey, what are you still doing here?
Well, while you're still here and while it's fresh in your mind, check out live.teledudes.com.
Yeah, if you weren't listening before, we took notes from over 100 interviews with top agents from around the country and made it into a live webcast.
Using these strategies did help Craig and I write over $10 million in premium in the last couple years.
And let me tell you, on this call, you'll receive the exact blueprint to get the very same results.
Again, that's live.teledudes.com to register for this upcoming Tuesday's live call with us.
And if you jump on with us, we are certain 2022 will be an absolutely fantastic year for you.
See you there.